All right, excellent. Everyone's joining. I'm glad everybody's coming in. Welcome everyone again once to the collaborative general meeting. We are excited to see so many wonderful familiar faces and grateful for you to be a part of the collaborative and our discussion as we move towards our collaborative efforts in the city and how we can help support each other. So we've invited two wonderful guests with us today, and I'm going to actually have I've asked the co-chair, or so the chair and the co-chair, Leanna, who is the chair of the collaborative, and also Sim, the co-chair. And they're going to introduce the speakers, and we'll also have a discussion. As mentioned before, we are streaming this on live through Facebook, and also we've opened up the chat. So feel free to include yourself here, and also include any resources that you have or questions that may come up, and I'll be keeping with that. And Helene is also on the board, has also been offered to help support and facilitating this as well. So I'm going to go ahead. Leanna, do you want to welcome us and introduce our first speaker?
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. So glad to be joining you today. Again, my name is Leanna Fercucci. I'm co-owner, co-director of CF Dance Academy in the Classic Fullerton Ballroom, and had the privilege of being the board chair of the Fullerton Collaborative for a few years now. So excited to see you all every second Monday of every month, and come together. Our first speaker today is our fire chief, Adam Lozer. Adam Lozer became the City of Fullerton's fire chief on December 30th, 2018. He formerly served as the Deputy Chief of Operations for the Brea and Fullerton Fire Departments, and had served in this capacity since 2015. He is a member of the Brea Fullerton Consolidated Commander Staff, which manages, I'm so sorry. Staff, which manages 10 fire stations covering 35 square miles with 125 personnel. Together, both departments responded to 20,000 calls in 2017. Adam has a bachelor's degree in political science from the University of Hawaii and is Cal State Chief Officer qualified. He has been married to his wife for 20 years and has two incredible daughters. Adam and his family live in Mission Viejo. Thank you so much for joining us, Chief.
Thank you, everybody, for having me on, and thank you for the introduction. So I wanted to take a couple minutes to give you an update on the Fullerton Fire Department and some of the challenges that we're facing, and address a couple questions that are probably floating around out there as it relates to COVID and the wildfires that are really pressing on our neighbors and affecting all of our lives right now. But as Leanne mentioned, I oversee the two fire departments, but here today, I want to talk specifically about the Fullerton Fire Department and give just a little brief background on how it deploys. And we have traditionally in the past have not done the best of marketing ourselves as what we do and why we do it and how we do it. And so making a concerted effort to move forward as to opening our doors, not so much in addition to the education that we provide to our grade school kids, but also to the adults, to know what part of public safety the fire department plays and how it works. So within the city of Fullerton, we have 6 fire stations, and they're strategically located throughout the city. In each of those fire stations, there's one piece of equipment that has 4 individuals that work on it on a daily basis. The engines, which are the shorter apparatus that you see mostly driving through the city, those have paramedics on them. They have 2 of them, 2 paramedics. So out of the 4, 2 are going to be your paramedics. So that fire engine is at 5 of our stations. And at the 6th station up on Rosecrans is our ladder truck. The ladder truck is the one that has the large ladder on the top, and it has the driver in the back. And those of you that remember Seinfeld, you may have seen Kramer driving the back and having a pretty good time. So those are our 6 pieces of equipment that serve the city. On that ladder truck, there are also 4 people, but they're not paramedics on that apparatus. We responded to a little over 13,000 calls last year. And to put it into perspective as far as growth over the last decade, in 2010, we responded to just over 10,000 calls. So our call volume has definitely gone up over the last 10 years. And our responsibility to you and the citizens of the city are to have a quick response time, professional trained staff, and to take care of whatever problem it may be that you're calling about, whether it is fire, whether it is somebody is trapped in a vehicle, whether it is a heart attack, a drug overdose, whatever it may be. We are called to take care of your emergency. And every single person on this call has a different take on what an emergency is to them. So I liken it to our fire equipment is really a Swiss Army knife, or a tool chest. It travels around, it goes from call to call to call to call, no matter what it is, but it's always prepared to handle those variety of calls or any type of hazard that comes down. One of the pieces that we're dealing with right now, our challenges, is trying to maintain or decrease our response times. Over the last several years, we've been going through some fiscal challenges within the city. Fire department is one of those departments that is going through those challenges. And one item that is on the forefront here is really trying to maintain a service level that is the best for our citizens here. Unfortunately, the cost to that is it is what it is. And what we're trying to work on right now is trying to minimize or, if at all possible, maintain or increase that service level. With our current budget the way it is going and the impact of COVID around us, this is definitely something that, as the fire chief, am having to look at. Now, let me take it through just one quick thing here. So I mentioned that a fire engine has 4 people on it, and 2 of those are paramedics. They get dispatched to a call and say a person is having chest pain. The fire engine arrives on scene with the 2 paramedics and the other 2 members. They assess the patient, they treat the patient, and the patient needs to go to the hospital. So now one of those paramedics is going to transport that patient to the hospital because this patient is seen as being stable. So they've been treated, they're stable. The likelihood of something else occurring, very, very minor, if at all. They're going to transport that patient up to the hospital, and the other 3 remaining personnel of that fire engine are going to go back into service to serve their first due area, their district. By doing so, that enables us to lower our response times and keep the other fire units in their first due districts instead of having to come into that district to take care of problems. So what we look at right now with the 4-person engine companies is that we get a 2-for-1 resource. And that 2-for-1 resource is very valuable. And this is something we put into play about 2 years ago, and has worked out very well for response times, people in their first due areas. What we may have to go to, depending on how this next budget fiscal year moves forward with, is reducing that down to a 3-person engine company. And if we do something like that, we lose that ability to have that 2-for-1 resource, because now in that same scenario that I just mentioned, that one paramedic could still transport that patient to the hospital. But now with only having 2 personnel on that apparatus, both the national standard and our county standard doesn't allow that fire engine to go back into service. 2 people are not effective as far as going to a fire. And so they remain out of service, which means our response times have the possibility of increasing. So it's one aspect that we're looking at a challenge that we're looking at dealing with over the next few months here, that would possibly be a reduction in our service to the citizens. Why is the response time so important? For the medical side of it, those of you that have CPR, you may know heard that time is heart muscle. So the sooner that medical personnel can get on scene, the better outcome it's going to be for a person who's having a stroke, a person who's having a heart attack, and generally speaking, any other type of medical issue. For the fire side, every minute that goes by increase or decreases the survival rate for occupants inside of that burning building. It also increases the damage to that building. So the sooner that a full force fire department can arrive on scene and start taking care of triaged issues during that fire, the higher probability of survival for the occupants and the less damage that's going to occur to the actual building. So those are some of the outcomes or the fallout of reducing our staffing as it relates to the fire department. Another piece that I'll talk about is the cost of those fire engines and that ladder truck. And they are not cheap. They are all made, fortunately, in the United States, but they are mostly custom built fire engines. We tag on to specifications that are done by other fire agencies, and we put our specific needs into that. But at the end of the day, they are still a very expensive, probably the most expensive piece of equipment that we purchase as a city. The fire engines at about $700,000 and the ladder truck at about $1.5 million. So they are very expensive. Now we get our use out of them, which is fantastic. The ladder truck at 1.5, we'll use that as a frontline fire apparatus for 20 years. After 20 years, we put it in reserve or backup status for another 5 years. So our citizens, we get about 25 years out of that one purchase. The fire engine, that is 15 years and 20 years, and with an additional 5 for a total of 20 years for backup. So the issue becomes, we got to pay for these pieces of equipment. And they are tied to national standards as far as how much they can be used, and also the technology that is around them. And so right now we are in need of a ladder truck. And unfortunately, we had an accident with our reserve ladder truck last July 4th. It was parked on the side of the road tending to a medical emergency. And we had a drunk driver hit the rear of the vehicle. Luckily, nobody was injured, but it did so much damage to that apparatus that it was taken out of service. That leaves our frontline apparatus. Our frontline apparatus is slated to move to that backup position next year. And so we're faced with, again, trying to look at a budget that is along with our reserves at a very tumultuous spot, and trying to provide not only the service, but the equipment for the men and women of the department to respond on. And these are some very significant challenges that have the ability to affect our service to our citizens. We've always worked very well with whether it's our Firefighters Association or the fire department with this group and many of the members that are a part of this collaboration. And with that, we always want to continue that collaboration and support. We greatly appreciate it. And kind of leave it there before I get into a couple other topics. Any questions specifically with what I just mentioned there? And Ken Domer, who's is our city manager, I know he's on there as well and can address any pieces tied to that. But any questions right now? Okay.
Just to give you Chief, I just wanted just 2 minutes, and then we're going to have questions. And I'm keeping an eye on the chat to see if there's any questions that come up.
Oh, perfect. Right. Thanks, Deborah. How has COVID impacted the fire department response times, needs for the city? That COVID for my department, this is our Super Bowl. This is what we prepare for. This is what we do. So precautions that we've increased is just our personal protective equipment. When we've been dispatched to a person who is either a known COVID positive patient or has signs or symptoms that possibly could be COVID related. So we take the precautions, our personnel take the precautions to make the person they're responding to feel safe. And then we treat those patients accordingly. Now, those 4 people all don't go into the house to treat or assess that patient. We send in 1 person. And the reason for that is we feel there's really not a need to expose all 4 people to an emergency until we know exactly what's going on. So we take a little bit of a cautious approach to that. But I think it's important for everybody on here to realize that your fire department personnel has the proper PPE to stay safe. Your ambulance transport has the personnel and the PPE to stay safe, and your hospitals have the PPE and the knowledge to stay safe. So we did see a dip in calls there for a little bit, and what we can ascertain were people were worried about calling 911 or going to the hospital because of the COVID worry. COVID makes up a small amount of the calls that we go on. There's all the other medical emergencies that can be life-threatening. And we have had different instances where people have delayed their calls because they're worried about that. And I want to make sure everybody is confident in their 911 system that if you or any of your family or friends have an emergent need, to please call 911. We will safely take care of you and get you to the appropriate facility that has taken the proper precautions to keep you as the patient safe. Another question came up about our wildfires, and the wildland fires have been going on all around us, and those mostly have been taking place outside of Orange County. We've been in an Orange County bubble this entire time, and knock on wood, we'll take it. Most of you notice that the humidity has been high, which has been great for fires. We haven't had any Santa Ana wind conditions, but around us, it's been a different story. We have participated and helped our neighbors up and down the state since the beginning of the fires, and we continue to do as of today as well. As far as prevention for all of you that are on this or on Facebook, we do say, take a look at your surroundings of your house or where you live. If you live in a single family residence and you have yard or you're up against one of our open areas, we ask, make sure you have 100 feet of clearance from your home. Make sure that you don't have anything that's combustible that is around your home. Take a look at your eaves. Make sure there's no leaves, needles in your gutters. Make sure your smoke detectors work. Take a good look at your home as it is right now while nothing's going on, and see if you can make your home less vulnerable to the winds that blow through our community, because that's really a lot of times what exacerbates the problem with fires in Orange County is that a fire may start somewhere, but if they're pushed by 60-mile-an-hour Santa Ana winds out to the ocean, those embers blow into little pieces of everybody's roof and other parts of their house, and with the continuous wind, they blow just like when you're trying to start a campfire, and it grows. And that's where we start getting these massive spreads of fire throughout the community. So take the time to take a little bit of prevention time and I guess do some area landscaping and make sure you're ready for what we have coming up, which is this month and next month is typically our Santa Ana condition weather. So those are some of the recommendations from the fire side. And the last piece that I'll leave you with, if by chance we have an incident that requires evacuations, we ask that you have a plan in place for that too, somewhere to stay, what items you want to take with you. And if the police, we work with our PD, if the police department comes to your door and says that we're doing evacuations, to heed the evacuations. so that we can come through and do our job and not have to worry about transporting and taking care of people. Let us work whatever magic we can if that becomes the case, much like we've seen in Northern California.
Chief Lozer, my name is Helene Morris. I'm with on the Fullerton Collaboratives Board and also with Fullerton School District. And I just want to thank you so much for your presentation and for what you shared and the great advice and for all the hard work that you and your team are doing. It's so commendable. I just want to ask of our group here before we close out this presentation and move on to our next. What questions do you have for Chief Lozer? Well, either everybody's feeling really shy today, or you covered it all and gave us a lot of food for thought, or maybe it's water for thought. Like I always think of fire and water together. So, so thank you so much. We really appreciate that, and thank you for being here today and for your valuable time. I'm going to turn it over to Leanna now, who's going to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you.
I actually think that's Jason.
That's me.
That's you.
And I'm still upset that I haven't got to drive the ladder truck. Chief promised me that years ago, and still no go on that.
Well, we'll get that taken care of, Jason.
Yeah, thanks.
Happen.
No, I want to thank Adam as our chief as well, because we've had access with him through Fullerton Act, which is a collaboration of churches in the city, as well as Ken, our city manager, who I'm going to introduce. And I could say all the incredible things. He's a USC graduate, although some may have problems with that. I'm a UCLA basketball, but USC football fan. But I think what's great about Ken is, as long as I've been working in the city, Ken has created more of an open door and dialogue for things that we'd like to see happen and that we've collaborated on and worked on. So I've been incredibly grateful for his leadership in the city, and looking forward to hopefully many more. So Ken Domer, our city manager, it's all on you now.
Let me find the mute button. Thank you, Jason. I thought I should be worried when they turned it over to you to introduce me, but I'm sure Adam will give you a ride or let you drive the new ladder truck as soon as I let him buy a new ladder truck. But as he said, it's about 1.5 million or so, and we're still trying to figure out a way to do that. But yeah, thank you for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate all you guys getting together, and truly what this wide-ranging group does in Fullerton. I've been in many other cities and the County of Orange and the state of California before that, but I don't think I've found a group that had that met like you and was representative of so many different groups for the betterment of the community. So it's one of those things that when I was looking at my next step, and I did want to return to my birthplace, St. Jude Hospital, but I wanted to return to a place where I knew there was great opportunities, and Fullerton is it. And I think your group is kind of representative of the fact that there's a lot of caring people in Fullerton who want to see it get better and want to take care of other people who are in the community. And so it's really neat, but it's also, there's a lot of people who have looked at what the city's done in the past, and Jason talked about the transparency and the openness and all that stuff. And, I even experienced that it was really difficult to find information when I was looking at becoming city manager as to what information was available and all that stuff. And so that still remains one of my commitments to both city employees and to the residents, to make sure that information is available and that we get that out there. We are updating our website finally. The website's ugly, it doesn't have enough information, but we are getting that. So we've been looking at some prototypes, working with the group that does all of it, and we should be rolling that out over the next several months, which is a good thing, because I'm a big advocate of putting that information on, especially when we get public records requests. It should always be, oh yeah, that's on the website, just look here. And so look forward to that. But talking about opportunities, and with opportunities, sometimes you can't get to those because of the challenges facing you. And I think that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today is Fullerton has a lot of challenges in front of us. But it's also one of those things where we have so many opportunities that I believe we can overcome our challenges. Right now, the biggest challenge to the city government itself is our financial challenges, both the short term, which is related to COVID-19, and then long term, which is, I did a presentation to council about 3-4 weeks ago. It is online, and it looked back at our budgets and how we did things to the late 1970s. And we have always been challenged in trying to provide for the infrastructure needs that the community want, while maintaining the expectations, both on a landscape and in a park and the different services. And when you look at what goes on in cities nowadays, cities are responsible for so many more things than what we were back in the 80s, back in the 70s, and before then. And it includes homelessness. It includes a lot of issues that the state has both taken our money and then put into legislative language that, yeah, we're going to put this onto the cities, and we realize it's an unfunded mandate, but we're not going to give you any funding to do this mandate. So both on a let's take the city money, and then on a let's give the cities more to do, but without the money, it's getting very difficult to run a city. But we continue to do so. And I want to, applaud the staff that's been here. They do so much good stuff. And especially our landscaping crew and those folks that are going out on the streets every day to repair potholes and do small pavement projects. I had the opportunity to go out with them. And let me tell you, that is extremely difficult work. It's fun, because it's a lot more satisfying sometimes than sitting at this desk and looking at paperwork or being in meetings, because out there, you can pour a bag of asphalt into a hole, pound it down, and you fill the hole, which is great. And the same thing going out with our landscape crew and shoveling a lot of weeds and dry brush along Bastion Cherry several months ago. First of all, it's good that you pick days to go out there on a cold and kind of overcast day. But during the summer months, it's torturous work. And these guys are out there all the time, busting their backs doing it. So I really want to thank them. But the challenges before us, I believe we can get through them. It's just going to take some time. Adam was talking about the challenges facing the fire department. And, you could pick every different department here and look at the challenges that are facing it. And so, with the financial effect, the long term of trying to provide services, I go back and I talk about the fact that Fullerton is a city that operates, if you're old enough to remember buying a car in the early 80s where you had the choice of crank down windows or automatic windows. Those were an option back then. Air conditioning used to be an option. In Fullerton, we have your basic revenues, which are property tax and sales tax. We get a little bit of TOT from the few hotels that we have here. Property tax, of all the property tax generated, we get about 15.6% of it. Over 70% of it goes to education. Of the sales tax, so when you purchase something and it has taxable interest on it, we get 13% of that overall sales tax, because we have the 1% of the 7.75. So when you divide all that stuff, and I let other people do that, but that's about 13%. So, but it is also, you know, I talk about how the differences between us and other similar cities. Orange, for example, same size population, about the same size geographically, but they just grew up different than us. You know, we don't have those commercial corridors. We don't have a lot of other retail generating places and automotive dealerships, because decades ago, we wanted to be more of a bedroom community, more residential. And that kind of stripped us of the ability nowadays to have those retail components, though we are really trying to get back to that and encourage economic development through various ways. But so that's one of the reasons why it's interesting to, you know, when people talk about, well, I'm not supportive of this or not supportive of that, but understand, you know, the city needs money and, oh yeah, they need a new revenue source. When it comes to cities, there's really not too many choices in revenue sources. You know, cities survive off taxes. We also survive off fees and charges. The place where we do most of the fees and charges, for example, is our community and economic development department. Because if you go in there, generally you're going in to build something, to remodel your kitchen, add a bathroom, put in a pool. That's a private activity. So how we're going to pay for that, or pay the staffing that do all the inspections, do the plan check, is we're going to put a charge on that for the actual service that you are using. It's the same thing. About 3 years ago, I introduced that we have animal control. And, you know, licenses, we contract with the County of Orange for it, but we were subsidizing for about $1.2 million animal control in Fullerton and using the general fund. So we weren't charging those people who were seeking licenses the 100% of the cost recovery. In over 3 years, we brought it up to 100% cost recovery. We still are doing a little bit of subsidy, but that's only because those are some of those services you have to pay for, the services of the county for, you know, rabid animals, vicious dogs, you know, the dog catcher themselves. So those are some of the ways, but really when it comes down to it, you know, the city, we can't, you know, charge Jason for a ride on the fire truck. So when the fire crew is in the station and, you know, waiting for a fire or a medical emergency in between, we can't charge people to go around the block on the engine. We can't generate money like that. We don't have products. We have services that we provide, and we pay for those services through property taxes, sales taxes, and other things like that. So yeah, there's no product we can develop and, you know, put on the market shelf to try to generate revenue. It is truly those taxes. So with that, I know there's always a lot of questions, and I know Adam is on the screen. He's right next to me. You know, if there's any questions on that, I can go on forever about, you know, budgets, pensions, what they do contribute to our fiscal issue, when they're going to go away, but why they're not the cause of everything, our road condition, why, you know, your street looks horrible, but we're doing your neighbor's street that doesn't look so bad. So any questions like that, please let me know. And if you can't get it asked or answered today, kdomer@cityoffullerton.com, and please send me an email.
Thank you so much, Mr. Domer. We really appreciate you sharing on behalf of the City of Fullerton on all of the great work that you are doing. At this time, we do have a couple of minutes for any questions that may come from our group. And if anybody doesn't feel like they want to just call out, you're welcome to put it in the chat as well.
All right, Helene, I have a question here from Barry. This is for Ken. What ideas do you have to meet the new RHNA numbers, and how can the collaborative support you?
So the regional housing needs allocation are numbers that are set originally by the city, the state. The state says, you know, the state needs X amount of new housing. It goes down to regional planning areas. We are involved with other counties in SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments. They assign us a number. That number for Fullerton, for our current 8-year cycle, which is ending, we needed to create about 1,800 units of housing. And there's various levels, very low, moderate, and above moderate. This next 8-year cycle, that number is 13,180. So it's a huge increase in the amount of housing that is required here. And quite frankly, I don't know where we're going to put it. When you think about 13,000 new units over the next 8 years, so, the assistance we need, and a couple of things we're doing right now is we are going through the process of what's called a housing opportunity incentive zone. We're looking at different areas, say, for example, underutilized commercial, some industrial areas. We have, some surplus property areas, and basically looking to see how can we incentivize people to develop there and do it a little bit easier than what is normal. It's the development process is difficult, so assistance on that. We really need people to think and to understand what housing is and why affordable housing is needed for all different socioeconomic areas. And, when I first bought my house here in Orange County back in 1998, I bought a small 900 square foot on a busy corner north of Chapman University. So it was a 1947 house that it took me 14 months to completely redo. It was thrashed. But I sold that house for about $300,000, bought a $325,000 house, expanded that. So, that's what we've always dreamed about, being that upward mobility here in Orange County. And, I worry where my 3 daughters are going to be able to afford a home. The home across the street from me just sold for $1.131 million. That's just absolutely nuts. I don't understand. I appreciate it, but I don't understand how anybody, especially they're in their late 20s, they graduated from Canyon High School, so I have something against them too. But I just don't know how anybody affords that. So we just need your assistance on understanding, helping as we go through these multiple housing projects that are coming forward, and there are the environmental studies on everything. So, and we are looking for housing champions to provide input. So you could always contact Matt Folks, who's my community and economic development director on that.
Ken, may I ask a question? What do you say to people who say that, in Fullerton, we're developing, we are, bringing in housing, mixed density, high density, what have you, and that's not generating enough revenue to balance our budget and catch up with some of our expenses? Thank you.
Great. I was hoping you wouldn't ask me about something surgery related, because it looks like you're about to go into a procedure. So residential development generally does not create revenue opportunities for a city. So when you look at some of the, the reality is that you create affordable housing by having a denser project. So you make it cheaper by the unit to develop. So instead of, a 12 unit to the acre development, you want 35 units. And that can create that affordability in the different sectors. But what you also want to make sure is that if it's going on some of these areas where there's been commercial activity, that we have ground floor commercial spots, because we don't want to get rid of any commercial or retail opportunity. I'm very against that. So you have to have what's called mixed use. And so you have to be able to have that ability to still generate, a cafe down below or some other type of service that can generate economic activity. Generally residential creates, especially if it's, if you take 10 units and now it's 35 units, think about how many more times the police department, the fire department have to respond. Think about the amount of sewage that is now going through that sewage pipe, the water usage, the trash collection, the impact on the roads, all of those services need to be covered by that development. So there are traffic impact fees, park development fees, and other things like that. But one of the things we may have to look at is some type of community facilities or community services district to overlay for when this new development comes in. Then they're paying a little bit additional for those services if we cannot afford it otherwise, and if we don't have other revenue. But yeah, generally residential doesn't pay for itself. So you need to be very careful about when you put it in, and you put it in a higher dense area, especially in a downtown or narrow transit, that you mix in some of the commercial and other uses on the ground floor.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Domer. We really appreciate that. I think that's all the time that we have for questions today. So at this time, I'm gonna just thank you so much for your time, and you were so generous to share your email with everybody. And maybe if you wouldn't mind just typing that into the chat, that would be helpful for our members here today to reach back out to you. And I believe I'm turning it back to Leanna right now, who's going to wrap up the rest of our agenda today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helene. Right now, we'll just do some, Deborah, are we good for updates with our board?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to be doing just some of our board updates. As a general update from the entire board, we just did have a board meeting on Tuesday last week, and really trying to, before COVID hit for all of us, we did have all of our subcommittees in our different groups, and a lot of those subcommittees were planning, executing, and holding regular events in person together throughout the community. And unfortunately, because of what has happened, a lot of the focus of the collaborative of being able to bring the community together in person for these engagement events, all of those are on hold. So the biggest part of our conversation really was around what is the biggest need, what is the community going to need from us, from the collaborative, and how can we work together and leverage our resources together to be most effective during, for a lot of people, what is really a challenging time. Most of those discussions were around the mental health of our young children and high schoolers, and school starting, and that stress on families, and making sure, Helene really offered a lot of input for us from the school district and what they're working on, and just figuring out in these coming months with school starting tomorrow for Fullerton, how we can be, it's very exciting, but if needs arise, then being prepared as a board of how we can communicate that to you. So please come to us. Any of your organizations that are finding school starting, you're needing a little bit more support, and we want to be there to connect for you. And then also we will be presenting next month a topic surrounding housing, and with our sitting with Ken, just kind of wrapping up with that, it does segue very well, because a lot of our rent moratoriums are coming up and at the end of the year, and what support are we going to be able to offer you to therefore offer your clients that might be affected by the rent moratoriums becoming due, and them still having maybe family members out of work still because of COVID and what's going on. So that was most of our discussion was around that, and also membership, and really making sure that we are having all of our members engaging. This is a really important time for us. We don't know what you need and how we can support you unless we meet. And unfortunately right now, it is only Zoom, but we are finding that we're actually touching more people through this platform, because a lot of Mondays at 2:30 isn't easy for people to actually get there in person. But we have, members that are able to watch the video and still have the resources. So just please extend our information to anybody in the community that you think might be interested in this support for them as an organization or a business.
Leanna, and I just wanted to follow up on that right now, just to let you know, we have reached over 94 people on our Facebook page by streaming it, and there's additional 13 more people watching with the 35. So we have able to really help the community as well. We also, part of that meeting, wanting to help support the collaborative. And so I'm going to put a poll there for the members for you to complete. It says, do we want, what is the most helpful for you during the organization from the during COVID time? And so what out of those 5 things, what is the most helpful for you? You could go ahead and select that. About a third of you have voted, about 40% now. You guys are doing great. I'll wait another 30 seconds. About 10 more seconds before we have about 73% of you have voted.
These polls are very, very useful.
All right.
I love them.
So 96%, I'm going to go ahead and close it. So it looks like the majority of responses was networking, but also connecting with potential partners to assess opportunities to share resources would be helpful, but also assistance in planning services during this uncertain time. So being able to help support you in that as well. All right. And with that leadership development, if you wanted to talk briefly about what the board was talking about.
Yes. We were just, me, myself as a leader, I shared with the board on Tuesday that putting it out there if there was a need for it or feedback on it of, are we finding that we as leaders are needing some type of workshop or engagement opportunity, or if you'd be interested in supporting our resiliency right now as leaders. You know, I'm finding that we are all having the same challenges, but when you're, you know, the director of an organization and you're the one always trying to find answers for everybody that's coming to you, but you're still having the same challenges yourself. And I know resiliency for directors of nonprofits and organizations is always an issue, but I'm finding for myself that within these uncertain times where we usually have our list of answers, right? And we're able to just kind of go to those answers and give them to our clients. But now we're having to research and find answers and what's the best thing to tell them. And you're second guessing yourself. Is this the safest way to do things? And so just putting it out there to see if anybody is feeling the interest in something like that. You could email us, you can message us in the chat, or if you have a question about that, but maybe it looking like just some kind of like longer extended meeting or something like that, like not really a full day retreat, but something along those lines. And or if anybody knows of any organizations that are already doing something out there that we could connect together with that subject matter. So
thank you, Leanna. And in regards to education, I don't believe there's an update from Barry. So we're going to go ahead and just do the next update, which is the next gen. And we have Bev or Christian.
I think it's Bev today. Christian's not here.
Okay.
So we did not meet in October, but our next meeting is scheduled for November 3rd at 10 a.m. And what we're hoping to do is bring together organizations that serve our youth in our community so that we can share what we're doing, what resources we have, and what our challenges are so that we can build on that. So again, we are open to having anyone that would like to join us November 3rd at 10 a.m. That's it for me.
Thank you so much, Bev, for sharing that. And then I also wanted to ask Jason if you had any other updates. I see David's in the chat has posted, but Jason, you want to update us anything?
Yeah, no, our collaborative's still on hold, but there is an event tomorrow night, People for Housing OC, and also the Tri-Parish are hosting an event. What does it mean post-emergency shelter? which should be very helpful because it's not emergency shelter isn't the fix-all. There needs to be housing and for the system to move. So sign up for that or go to the thing that David posted. That's what I would recommend.
Thank you, Jason. And then Tracy, do you want to go ahead and update us on some exciting things that are happening in North Orange County and the health and wellness? Let's see, where's Tracy?
Yes, I'm unmuted.
Okay.
Yes, for our Kids Fitness Challenge, we did that with the Fullerton School District, and the 3 top winners have been selected, and they will be announced on Friday, October 16th through Facebook and TikTok and Instagram after 3, and we're awaiting the parent consents for them to show their videos. And the videos are of something that they enjoy doing to be physically active, and then telling why they think it is important to be physically active. So there were about 18 entries, which we were excited about. So we'll be sharing that on Friday. And then the other thing is for our Fall into Fitness challenge, we already have 500 participants, and 340 of those have set goals. So again, this is all done virtually in partnership with the City of Fullerton and the school district and our residents. So we are trying to, reach as many people as we can to get people up and out and moving. So thank you.
Excellent, Tracy. Thank you so much. I appreciate that update. And I have, looks like 6 minutes left for any other partner announcements or comments we would like to share. And there's some great things in the chat, so hopefully you're able to see the chat on some upcoming events. So go ahead and raise your hand if you want to share, and I'll call on you. All right, Father Dennis, go ahead and share.
Oh, sure. One other thing that tomorrow will be, it's again the second Tuesday of the month, and so we have during the noon hour a prayer service for those who died homeless in the previous month. And since the beginning of the COVID crisis, the number has basically doubled. And now this month it's over three times higher than last year at this time. Though last year it might have just been a fluke month because it was very low. There are 32 people who died in Orange County homeless last month. Last year there were 10. It's something honestly to just keep track of and to understand that it doesn't even have to be COVID itself. It could just be the greater isolation, the lack of resources, all kinds of things anyway that it could be. But nevertheless, the mortality rate of the homeless in Orange County has more than tripled. And already, actually, when it comes to Fullerton, it's about 1.5 or close to 2 times as many people have died already in Fullerton as they did last year. Just that so we're having a prayer service on Zoom tomorrow during the noon hour. I put earlier in the chat about that. I'll put it up again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that announcement. Before we go into the next announcement from Fair Housing, I just wanted to, I have a question. If there's questions also for the speaker, Chief Lauser and Ken are still here. And I do have a question. I sent it to you, Ken, in regards to Measure S vote tax in Fullerton. So if you want to look at your chat, and then I'll come back to you after our next announcement. So Nick Nava, can you share with your announcement from Fair Housing?
Hey everyone. So this is Nick from the Fair Housing Foundation. I just want to remind everyone that we do have Fair Housing workshops every Tuesday. And then in those workshops, we do go over some of the current moratoriums and laws in California, such as AB 3088. So if anyone has any questions, or if anyone knows anyone who is interested in attending our workshops, they are free. You just have to register online. And then on Wednesdays, we have virtual rental counseling workshops as well. So if anyone knows any tenants that may have questions, especially right now during this time, please send them our way. You can look at our events on Facebook and follow us on any social media platforms as well. Okay, and then on every other of the first and third Thursday of each month, we have Spanish workshops too for our Spanish speakers. Okay, and thank you, Deborah, for letting me give a quick little announcement.
Yes, Nick, thank you so much. All right. So, all right. So I don't know, Ken, if you saw the question or not about some concern about the Measure S tax. Do you think it's going to impact? And his response from the other 9 or so cities in Orange County that has passed sales tax measures have not noticed a measurable leakage of any folks leaving and buying larger purchases from that. And there was also another question just going back up that earlier from our Facebook page that was asked about if in the event of a catastrophic fire in the city, is there a designated area for evacuation, taking COVID into consideration? And that response was yes, the Fullerton Community Center. So we are looking at those questions. Thank you. All right, so I had another request. Beatrice, do you want to make an announcement on behalf of the YWCA?
Yes, hi. I just want to remind folks that, of course, this is a time where a lot of people are looking for employment, and we still have our Youth Employment Services program, which we have expanded to adults as well, the community. So we're not just limited to the youth. Please call our office, 714-871-4488 for help with finding a job. We also share job information all the time on our Facebook page. And a very good website that I will also read on the chat is californiajobnetwork.com. That's where you can just enter any keyword and you'll get a bunch of jobs. But again, just want to remind folks that we still have the Youth Employment Services program helping youth in Anaheim, and we've expanded the program to expanded it to the community at large. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Beatrice. All right, so another question I have, going back to these questions, Chief, regarding the CERT, Fullerton CERT. So how is Fullerton CERT doing? Do you have a response to that?
Yes, I just responded on the chat. So the CERT group is doing well. We have had most cities have kind of put a hold on utilizing our CERT volunteer group through COVID. But we did just actually begin reaching out to the group again with our cooling center that we had open a couple weeks ago due to the high temperatures. So several members were able to assist us opening that. And I'll be meeting with the CERT group within the next 2 weeks to touch base with the group to talk about next year and talk about the remaining part of this year as it relates to COVID, and hopefully get it back up on plane and start putting together a couple different drills and some trainings. So those of you that are on this call who are members of the CERT, if you haven't received notification of that, I'd ask just to please reach out to Jackie, and she'll have the details for that upcoming meeting. But again, a fantastic volunteer opportunity. If those of you that are on here are not part of CERT, or you have friends or family that would like to give back to their community, or specifically have some basic knowledge that in case of an emergency, you can help your neighborhood, I'd strongly encourage it. We do hope to have a CERT Academy sometime in the first part of next year.
Perfect. Thank you, Chief. All right. So just the last other things, just a couple announcements that was also in the chat that I just wanted to highlight that was presented. So make sure to look at that. But about the Orange County Grant Makers Summit is this week. So Zoop provided that link for you in there. Also wanted to highlight the Chamber of Commerce is doing the conversations with community leaders and to check out their YouTube channel. Also there was the Dr. S. We are the Two Doc Talk. We have the radio show, and we actually have the chief coming in a few weeks. You'll be able to listen to that. But last week we actually was meeting with Hoya Scholars. Before that, the police chief Dunn, and also Cal State Fullerton police chief. So you can see that radio show, not see that, watch or listen to that radio show. And there's that link for you in the chat. Some exciting things going on in the city. I also wanted to make sure that everyone, if you have resources or information that you want to share with the community, feel free to email me, and I will be able to share that out with everyone. And I would also encourage anyone that is wanting to become a member or knows someone to become a member, make sure to see me or email me, and I can provide you that link to renew your membership. And we really appreciate that as we come together and to make a difference in the city of Fullerton. And with that, Leanna, we are out of time. Do you have any closing comments?
Just thank you everybody for attending, and please, if you feel a need come up within your organization, please don't wait till the next meeting. Go ahead and just reach out to Debbie or myself, and we'll do everything we can to connect you with our partners.
Thank you, everyone. Okay. We are not streaming anymore on Facebook. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Yes, and Nick, I'm going to reach out to you regarding next month.
Yeah, sounds good.
You can be part of a panel. It'd be wonderful.
Okay. Yeah, please.
Deborah, I had a question for you.
Yeah.
So our center is doing a crowdfunding for one of our programs, and I wanted to know, I didn't want to talk about it here because I don't know if it's appropriate, but if there's any way that like Dr. Jones can send you the link that we're using currently. It's only open for 37 days to share with, you know, with the other organization, or is that something that's not allowed?
You can definitely share. That's, you know, I'm trying to think of how I could include it into the email blast that we have, but you said 37 days, so it's
yeah, it expires November 15th.
Okay. Yeah, you could share that information, and we could definitely connect you, and you're probably put it on social media as well, right?
Yes, we have. We've put it on different accounts. But I think if there's any way that I can, you know, just email you, there we have like a little email thing as well.
Okay.
If you're welcome to share with anyone, we'll really appreciate that. If this is not a possibility, I totally understand.
We will. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And thank you for everything that you do. If there's anything we can do as well on our end,